Hello and welcome to today's educational video. As many of you know, my name is Ethan Chase and I am a New York-based business growth coach. And I want to talk today about how do you actually measure the value of an amazing workplace culture. So this is something that I come across all the time. I get asked questions constantly. Whenever I'm talking to business owners, startups, founders, senior executives, the question always gets to, Ethan, we understand that the value of culture is becoming more critical to our financial success, but how do you identify it? How do you measure it? So I want to walk you through the process of using 4 metrics to determine the value in the culture that you've created. So the first is employee metrics. What do I mean by that? It's pretty straightforward. So what is the revenue created by each employee who is not, I repeat, not in a sales role? So these are back office personnel. These are support staff. How do you measure the value, the contribution of each of your employees who are not responsible for going out and acquiring new clients? That's the first. So does the organization, does your business have an employee idea generation program? That's the first thing I do when I look for a workforce vitality audit to measure an organization's culture. Do you have a formal program where on an annual basis, you set aside in your discretionary budget a fund to contribute to the ideas that your employees come up with that are based in 2 areas: generating revenue, reducing cost? Either way, top line, bottom line, the ideas that you're soliciting from your employees, there's a reason for that. They're closest to the work, so they know how to increase operational efficiency and to come up with new products, new services, or new markets, and or identify new clients potentially. What is your employee refer a friend program? So let me start with the caveat. If you go about re-architecting your recruiting process to hire the best and the brightest, assume that they know other people in their social and professional networks who are the best and the brightest. Do you formally incentivize those rock stars in your organization to go out on your behalf as your VIP brand ambassadors to solicit other great people to come into your organization? Do you have a formal coaching, mentoring, and sponsorship program in place? That's one way to determine the direct impact on the quality of your organization culture. Do you have a formal employee career and professional development program in place to constantly be upskilling your best employees? Do you have one in place? Employee retention. It's the quality of your hiring. On an annual basis, the number of people who come into your organization who stay through to year 2, year 3, and subsequent tenure advancement. So these are some of the metrics that you can use. The last that I'll indicate is the logic behind setting goals for your individual employees. Your employee KPIs, their individual key performance indicators, their goals, should be logical in terms of they should fit into each respective individual employee's team goals, which then should map out to your organization's high-level goals. So again, goal setting, individual, team, and organizational business setting. Those are some of the components you can use looking at the first of 4 key areas, your employee metrics. Next is client metrics. Equally straightforward as your employee metrics. Average client lifetime value. For the duration of how long a client stays with you, what is the value that you get out of that account? And that's predicated on your ability to serve your clients well. In other words, what's your client run rate retention level? On an annual basis, what is your business's retention of your client base? And then how do you compare that to your industry counterparts, your direct competitors? You have to have that objective data that you've gathered. So we're talking about a few things: average client lifetime value, client conversion rate, and what is your client renewal and retention strategies? See, they're 2 separate things. Renewing a client is at the end of that contractual basis, whether it's monthly, quarterly, annually. Renewing is getting them to continue with you. Retention is the set of strategies that you employ to best serve your clients. So lastly, you ask every single potential client, how did you hear about us? What you want is to measure the percent of your Rolodex, of your pipeline, your existing clients or potential clients, it works for both, what percent were actually word of mouth, where somebody in their social professional network directly recommended your business to them, okay? So that's just a starting point, employee metrics, client metrics. The third way to measure the value of the culture that you've built is your organization's performance. The number of consecutive quarters where you've outperformed the S&P for if you're in a publicly traded company. Your annual revenue growth compared to your direct competitors in your industry sector. The next measure of your organization's performance is I want to do an assessment when I'm looking at your organization of your intellectual property, your intellectual capital, the sum total of all of the brain trust of your employees. So intellectual capital is defined as patents, copyrights, trademarks. You look at world-class organizations, they're always growing organically and building great reputations through their employees. So you could argue that organizational performance, financial performance, is actually not a metric that you want to lead with, because financial performance is an outcome of things done effectively. So that's why when I'm consulting with organizations, I always say, sure, we want to look at the financial performance, the historical run rate performance, but we want to understand that that's an outcome of the first two considerations. Employees first, you look at employee metrics, as we've discussed. You then look at client metrics. Then you look at organizational performance. And then the last, and certainly not the least, is something that I've been working a lot with whether it's startups, small businesses, organizations in hyper growth mode. And yes, they're out there even in today's competitive business climate with all the uncertainty. Industry reputation. What do I mean by industry reputation? So we talk about, first of all, organizational reputational Q score. A Q score or a quotient score comes from marketing parlance. You apply it from people who are celebrities, athletes, performers, artists. A Q score is the de facto reputational awareness that people in your industry sector have. So if you were to ask a short list of your potential clients or even your existing clients to think of an organization who serves that industry sector, they'll start listing off names of businesses. You want to be on the tip of their tongue. You want to be one of the first organizations that they have recall, that they're aware of. So a Q score is a way to measure when people in an industry sector think of an organization that serves that market, who are they talking about? If I were to say motorcycles, you'd say Harley Davidson, Honda, Yamaha, Suzuki. That is Q score. The next is great place to work rating. Have you in your organization been identified as a great place to work? Next, founded by Bart Houlihan at Irrational Capital is a company certification called the B Corp certification. And what that is an extensive certification process you go through. Think of it as a Consumer Reports housekeeping seal of approval. The best organizations, the best run organizations, the most ethical, the ones who focus triple bottom line, people, profit, and planet, they all go through the rigorous certification process to get that valuable B Corp certification. Next up, Ethisphere. They've been for decades talking about annual list of the most ethical organizations. Does your organization have a listing on Ethisphere's annual list of the most admired, the most ethical organizations? That's another way to prove objectively that your culture now has widespread industry acceptance. Are you on any of those other annual great places to work listings? And this is, by the way, how I objectively, quantifiably measure organizational culture. The last consideration for the industry recognition component is positive press. Does your organization get positive exposure for its practices, for its reputation, for the way it treats its employees, its clients, positive impact to the stakeholders that you positively influence in the communities where your employees live? So these are the considerations. If you are interested in learning more about how do you actually measure the value of the culture you've built and identify opportunities for improving your culture, reach out to me. But as I said, we approach this systematically from a four-pronged approach, starting with your employee metrics, then your client metrics, then your organization's performance, and then lastly, your industry reputation. Let me know in the comments below if you thought this was helpful. I'd love your feedback. And if you like this and the other videos that I produce on my YouTube channel, please do me a favor. Subscribe to the channel. It really does help me to get these kind of videos out to a broader audience. So thank you so much for checking in today, and come back regularly as I'm always adding new videos for your business growth success. Good luck in your future business endeavors.